Well, if you're a fan of music, sit down, get comfortable, and turn up the volume. Don't worry, I'm not performing. There won't be any performances at all on this, actually. But we're going to review the last year and the last decade of music, and really, I'm not reviewing anything. I'm just asking questions. But this lovely lady, Leanne Burke, will be here to help go through this past year and decade of music. Leanne's one of the best rock stars in this area. She's the lead singer for M80. You have a side project, Leanne and Company, that you perform all over the place with that as well. So thank you for being here. Let's start diving right into, we'll start with the last year of music, 2019, before we get into what happened over the past decade. We'll start with the people that we lost. And how about Marie Fredriksson and Eddie Money? Two completely different styles of music, but I mean, the world, I felt like, was very in shock when these two people died.
The 80s have carried through over time, and they were two big names from the 80s. I very much identified them being in an 80s cover band. I mean, Marie has, well, first of all, they're both unmistakable voices. You know, as soon as you hear them, you know who they are. Roxette, you know, Marie's band, was just so big in the 80s. Eddie Money, so big. I mean, just, and their music, their voices, I mean, they were just big losses because of how they hit in the 80s and carried on throughout times.
So the staff at Billboard all got together at the end of 2019 and they voted on who they thought had the best song of the year. And I was really surprised by this. Bad Guy by Billie Eilish took the #1 spot. Like I said, it's a surprise to me. What about you? What were your thoughts on that song? Were you surprised that that took the top spot?
Not really. I've been hearing a lot of Billie Eilish lately, and she's kind of popped onto the scene and made a big impact. That song in particular, it's very up-tempo. When I was listening to it, it seems like very clubby, you know, even though it sounds soft, but the backbeat, the tempo is very, very up. And it's kind of, you know, it's playful also in the one part, duh, you know, and so I think maybe young people have really identified with that, and they have identified with her too, because she's very different from what we've seen, especially over the last decade or two.
So now, one of the big storylines of 2019 that I want to hit on actually came from a movie. A Star is Born with Lady Gaga was one of probably the biggest box office draws of 2019. As someone that is a musician, what was it about that movie that, you know, really stood out to you and you think made people want to go to the movies and see that?
Well, first of all, you have two different unique things about that movie. Number one, Lady Gaga went from music to acting. Bradley Cooper went from acting to music. Not only that, there was a big major love story in the movie. It hit all kinds of things: loss, tragedy, love, stardom, you know, losing stardom. So there was a lot to that movie. And I think the chemistry that Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper had really touched a lot of people.
And speaking of chemistry and love, so many people were tied to some of these artists that we lost over the past decade. Some of those names: Aretha Franklin, David Bowie, Tom Petty, Prince, George Michael, Whitney Houston. Who were some of the people that you thought were some of the bigger losses maybe from the past decade?
I mean, you said it. You know, all those big names, they hit the scene and they stuck around and they were so unique. I mean, there's just so many songs that they've released and hits and changes to the music scene that they made that, you know, we can't help but be impacted by their loss. And if I could say really quick, one of the biggest losses for locally or on the music scene was Tommy Winder. He was an excellent drummer, one of the best drummers that has ever walked the planet, in my opinion. He even performed with Aretha Franklin, I believe, when she was at the Kirby Center.
Oh, well, you know, God bless, sorry for your loss. But why don't we move ahead to maybe something a little more happier now? We'll get end on a happy note here. Let's go to successful artists from the past decade. Rihanna had 9 #1 singles over the past 10 years. What is it about her music that you think stands out?
Well, she's got it all. Again, great voice with that attitude kind of underlying, you know, great songs, great music, great look. And I think people like that. They want to feel like, yeah, we can do this. And she gives that off, that aura.
And when we look at the past 10 years of music, I mean, we see so many changes. I remember So I graduated high school in 2011. So like when I was in high school, it was like this Kesha, more poppy type club, and then all of a sudden now, as we wind it out, we're seeing like I said, Billie Eilish a little bit different. How about even Post Malone and what he's doing, bringing Ozzy in, kind of mixing classic rock with pop. So I feel like there's been so much change over the past 10 years. How did you see the change over this past decade?
We've just seen some really good artists hit the scene, and we've seen just it stay kind of on the poppy field. But like you're saying, some artists are going towards the past. So maybe people who are not into current music are going to now be drawn to it.
Well, now let's end this on a very bold prediction, and I want everyone to know that you heard it here first on SSPTV News when this happens. Here's my big prediction. Everyone ready? Drum roll, please. No Doubt will return.
Yes.
To start off the new decade, 2020. It's a big anniversary for them coming up. The reason why I think that Gwen Stefani's no longer doing her Vegas residency, she gives up her seat on The Voice. The drummer from No Doubt, he was working on some projects. He stopped doing those. What do you think, Lan? Am I onto something here? Is No Doubt returning?
Well, John, you know, I didn't know a lot of this, and now I do. And I have to say, I agree that maybe you're going to be right. And if that will be the case, I will be extremely happy because Gwen, I mean, come on, you know. Gwen Stefani?
I had the pleasure
No
of
doubt.
Seeing Gwen Stefani in concert in Vegas over the summer. Oh my God, what a show. I highly recommend that for anybody out there. Did you ever get to see No Doubt back in the day?
No, not live. Never got to see her live.
Oh, well, if they go on tour, like I'm planning, like I'm predicting they're going to do.
You let me know.
We're going to go jam out to some No Doubt. I hope you guys do that too, and I hope you guys enjoyed the last little bit of time that we just did here reviewing the past decade and the past year in music.